Hi there, and welcome to Sylvia and Peter talking about mental health in general and mental health and well-being in business in particular. Um, we've had a chat sort of in between these sessions where we're talking to you, and one of the things that we keep bumping into is awareness.
Mm.
We have awareness week, day, month of this, that, and the other. It's good stuff. But actually, is it working? Does awareness actually work? What do you think?
I think awareness is a great place to start. And I think we also have to remember there's a lot of people who are only just starting their journey, where the likes of you and I have been working in this field for probably the last 10 years. So I do sometimes get a little bit disheartened and a bit disappointed that things aren't moving. What difference do these days make? Awareness is great, and a lot of people are just starting on their journey. But what do we do with that awareness?
Hmm.
What do we do with it? What do we do with that awareness? Do we do with that information? And how do we transform that into what I like to call informed action? How do we move from awareness into actions? And I think what also is happening is that we have awareness, we have information. So let's get more data to actually get the more information. So we go in this little cycle: awareness, information, data. Oh, great, more data, more awareness, more information. But it's the how we make a difference, how we move things forward. I think in all things that seems to be a stumbling block. Because if these awareness days were working, we've just had World Suicide Prevention Day, we've got World Mental Health Day coming up in October. Why is it then that we still have over 800,000 people taking their own life every year to suicide? Why is it? Oh, between 6,000 and 7,000, depending on what data you look at. UK suicides, that's 1 every 2 hours. We've got 1 in 4 will experience a mental health, will have a poor mental health experience. And that's looking like that's going to go to, say, 1 in 2 or 1 in 3. 10 million children and adults currently in the UK have a mental health issue. The figures there are astronomical. But why is it that there's no change? So I do wonder what is their power? But I do think that they're good to have them periodically to spike. But in my opinion, every day is Mental Health Day. Every day is World Suicide Prevention Day. Every day is OCD Awareness Day, ADHD Awareness Day, Baby Loss Awareness Day, every day. But of course we don't, because we're wrapped up quite often in our own lives.
It's a little bit like the old saying about the weather. Everybody talks about it, but no one does anything about it. But on the other hand, if we didn't talk about these things, if we didn't raise awareness, then where would we be? So in a way, I think there's so much of this awareness for all sorts of things, which can be quite sort of awareness fatigue, like, oh, not another one, not another one. But then again, it is a fairly new concept, actually raising awareness, isn't it? Mental health issues have just been swept under the carpet for so many generations that if we don't start somewhere, almost like a project where you have 4 defined phases, you define the project, you plan it, you implement it, and then you close it. So the change you're implementing doesn't become business as usual. But we're only at the very beginning of that. I think we're only defining what does it actually mean to have poor mental health. What are these things that we can see out there where people are behaving like out of character? What does it mean? I think we need that understanding before we can do something about it. And then, well, who then does something about it? Because we can't all of a sudden become mental health workers, can we? Should we?
Well, I mean, that's the whole idea, in my opinion, about the awareness days, that we all become more aware of our mental health, what it is and what it isn't. We all become more aware of our okay position so we can spot our signs. But at the same time, it's also reaching to those people that don't want to know, not interested, don't get it, poo-poo the idea. Because otherwise, these mental health or any of these awareness days are in a way to preaching to the converted. We need to get to those people, reach beyond that. And that's where I think sometimes it's good still to do, but are they gaining the traction that they could and should have? That's always the question, but we have to keep going.
We have to. And one of the things that can happen when too many people have the knowledge or the ability to do something is that everybody believes that somebody else is doing it, so I don't have to. Somebody collapses in the street and there's only a couple of people around, someone will take action. But if a person collapses in the street and there's 5, 10, 15 people are waiting for someone to do something because, it's got to be, somebody must know more than I do. And then nothing happens. So we have to get to the point, I think, of, first of all, self-awareness.
Yes.
It's all well and good spotting signs in others, but when you spot them in others, you need to also do something for that other person. And maybe that's not the right thing to do, and the person will resist and all that sort of scenarios. But if we first of all learn to understand our own self, our own body, our own mind. So yes, I can feel anxious, but how does that feel? Where do I feel it? Is it just in the head, or is it actually, does my chest get a little bit tight? So if you then realize that, oh, my chest is feeling tight, maybe it's anxiety. Well, what is going on? What makes me anxious? What am I worried about? When we start to learn all these things, at least we can do something for ourselves and not rely on somebody else to look after us. So I think there's an awful lot of self-responsibility that we need to build up as well as also observing what's going on in the world around us.
It's interesting your point you say there, because quite often we can spot those signs in other people. So-and-so, they're a bit edgy today, or such and such is a bit quiet. So we have that skill. So if we can spot it in others, we can transfer that skill to ourselves. And I think that's the benefit of these awareness days, is to start to people, when it is in the media, on social, whatever, just spark that bit of interest, that curiosity. And for those organisations that aren't on the, I'm going to use the J word, on the journey, it might spark something to do something at, for example, May's Mental Health Awareness Week. You've got Anxiety Week, you have World Suicide Prevention Day, World Mental Health Day, and they're the spikes. But let's not forget the bit in between, where we continue the awareness in whatever program, whether, to your point, whether it's raising our own accountability and responsibility to look after ourselves like we do our physical health. So we have those spikes and have little things in between another spike, as opposed to just leaving it to the spikes. So I think it's every day is raising our awareness. But how we do that, because people really have lives to lead and quite often have short-term memories. Mental Health Awareness Week, that was in May. We're now October nearly, so what do we do now?
So what I think we can do is start with ourselves, be kinder to ourselves, understand our own symptoms and signals, and treat those with kindness and sympathy. And then what about your neighbor? What about your colleagues? Nobody can fix the whole world. And maybe the job looks as if it's too big sometimes, that we're waiting for a greater organization to do it for us or to us somehow, or dictate how it's going to be done. But what we can do is simply just show that level of understanding and kindness, and take a little bit more time sometimes with people who are running a little bit slower than ourselves mentally, and thinking, well, maybe there's a backstory. Let's just give them time, be a little bit more patient and understanding. I think if we start there, then we don't have to be experts, having been trained to God knows what level, to then confidently say, oh, I can fix this, I can fix that. We don't need to fix things all the time. We just need to maybe have a shoulder, ear, someone who will listen.
I think it's a great point, because then you maintain that awareness in between the spike days. So it's not this big global world mental health day, world this, UK this. We bring it down to our individual or our corporate or employee or on the individual level. So we raise our own awareness, those little bits in between, as you say, the kindness, the compassion, the empathy, the respecting that someone else may be having a bad day. And not to then to put a label on it. Oh, Peter's is so and so. No, he's just having a bad day, and just clocking that oh, we're still having a bad day. Do we have a conversation? Just raising our awareness to our own environments, you know, friends, family, work colleagues, you know, where we operate, the world in which we operate in as individuals. And I
And
think that way we can keep the awareness going.
and if we are aware of our own selves, our own behavior, maybe we will also understand how our behavior affects those that we interact with.
Yeah.
So if you think that the lady behind the counter in the local shop is always arrogant and rude, well, think about, how do you actually turn up? Are
Yes.
you provoking that
Yes.
attitude in her by simply you turning up in that way? So if we start looking at other people's behavior towards us as a reflection, then maybe there's something in ourselves that we can just fix gradually. And I think another reason why it's not really happening, the doing, is people could be afraid of getting involved. So
Yes.
if I help, oh, I'm going to be stuck with that person all the time.
Mm.
So there's still a lot of work to be done. I think we should carry on with the awareness, but we should just bring it back down to earth and see, what can I do at the micro level? You and I are not here to fix the whole world. We can only fix one person at a time. And again, when I say fix one person, it's the wrong terminology, really, because it's not a person gone wrong. It's something that the person is living with, struggling with, that needs to be addressed. Because most people are not wrong. They're perfectly decent human beings, but they have a story.
Yeah.
And I think we should let that message sink in here and just say, okay, awareness is good, doing is also good, but it has to be at the right time. And maybe a little and often is better than a lot and hardly ever.
I think one piece, well, as well as the awareness, you know, on an individual level, is when you do spot your own slippages, for want of a better phrase, what is the support, availability and accessibility at your employment, with your organisation, or within your friends and family? Again, raising your awareness to where to go if. And I think that's a great starting point.
Absolutely. Let's leave it at that and say thank you to those of us who have been watching us. Again, it's Sylvia and Peter. We are doing our level best to raise awareness and to also do the doing. And we look forward to seeing you again in another video. Thank you so much for watching.
Lovely. Thank you. Bye-bye.